After 5 years of cleaning up after her husband, feeding him, bathing him, and giving up her own life to care for him, she thought maybe he still respected her. She never asked for praise. She did everything out of love. She stayed home while her friends moved on with their lives. She gave up her job and her future. She told herself love meant standing by someone, even when it was hard. But that day changed everything. She had gone out to buy groceries like always. When she came back, she paused in the hallway, just outside the living room. She heard him talking on the phone with his brother. He was on speaker. He was laughing. He sounded happy. That was rare. She almost smiled, until she heard what he said. "Man, it's the easiest life," he joked. "She does everything. Feeds me, washes me, dresses me. It's like having a free servant. I don't even bother saying thank you anymore. What's the point? She's not going anywhere." His brother laughed too. They both thought it was funny. She stood there frozen, holding the grocery bags. Her hands were shaking. Her chest hurt. He had never said anything like that to her face. She always thought he was just tired or in pain. But now she saw the truth. He didn't see her as a wife. He saw her as someone to use. She didn't say anything. She walked in, put the groceries away, and gave him his food like normal. She kissed his forehead like always, but something inside her had broken. She didn't cry. Not then. She saved her tears for later, when he was asleep. That night, she made a decision. She started keeping track of everything she did. She wrote it all down. She began recording him when he spoke badly to her. She stopped running every time he called. She took longer to respond. She started leaving the house without telling him. Slowly, she pulled away. Then she reached out to people who used to know him. A nurse he had once yelled at. His sister, who had stopped visiting. A friend who hadn't called in years. All of them told her the same thing. He had changed. He had become cruel. She wasn't crazy. She spoke to a lawyer. She gathered proof. She made a plan. One weekend, she packed her things and left. He thought she was visiting her sister. Instead, he got divorce papers delivered to his door. He called her, begged her, screamed at her. She only said one thing. "You called me a free servant. I'm not free anymore. And I quit." Now he lives in a care home. Not because she wanted him to suffer, but because he left her no choice. She went back to school, started working again, and began to heal. Sometimes she still feels a little guilty. But then she remembers that day in the hallway, and she doesn't anymore. Before the accident, she thought they had a perfect love. He was kind, funny, and full of dreams. They planned a future together, talked about buying a house, maybe having children. She believed they were a team. When he had the accident, everything changed overnight. He became paralyzed from the chest down. The doctors said he would need full-time care. She didn't think twice. She said she would stay and take care of him. She thought that was what love meant. At that time, she had a chance to get a promotion at work. It was a big step in her career, but she turned it down. She packed up her life and moved with him to a smaller town so he could be closer to his parents and doctor. She thought he would notice her sacrifice. She thought he would still see her as his partner. She believed he would still treat her with love and respect. She didn't want praise. She just wanted to feel like what she was doing mattered. Every day became a routine. She cooked his meals, cleaned the house, helped him in and out of his wheelchair, and made sure he took his medicine on time. She bathed him, dressed him, and stayed up at night when he couldn't sleep. Some days were harder than others. There were moments when he would get angry, frustrated, or shut her out. She understood. He had lost control over his own body. She tried to be patient. People told her she was strong. They said they couldn't do what she was doing. Some even called her a saint. But she didn't feel like a saint. She didn't see herself as special. She just thought she was doing what any loving wife would do. She believed that he would do the same for her if their roles were reversed. She didn't feel sorry for herself. She just missed who they used to be. Sometimes, she would look at old pictures of them together. The smiles, the trips, the inside jokes. She missed the man who used to leave her sweet notes or kiss her hand for no reason. But slowly, those moments disappeared. He stopped saying thank you. He stopped smiling. He stopped asking how she was. He became cold, distant, and demanding. She blamed the injury at first. She thought he was just hurting inside. She told herself that one day he would feel better, and things would go back to the way they were. So she kept going. Day after day, she did everything for him. When his family didn't visit, she comforted him. When doctors gave bad news, she stayed strong. When friends stopped calling, she told him they were just busy. She carried the weight of both of their lives on her shoulders. But no matter how much she gave, it never seemed to be enough. He never asked if she was okay. He never offered a kind word. He started treating her like someone who owed him everything. She still believed in love. She still hoped he would see her again, not just as his caregiver, but as his wife. She didn't realize until much later that he had stopped seeing her that way a long time ago. She came home from the store with 2 bags full of groceries. It had been a long day, and her back hurt from standing in line and carrying everything by herself. As she reached the front door, she heard voices coming from inside. The door was slightly open. She paused for a second, thinking maybe he was on a call. She didn't mean to listen, but the words were clear, and once she heard them, she couldn't move. He was on the phone with his brother. She could hear the speakerphone echo. What shocked her most wasn't the words at first. It was the sound of his laugh. It was loud and full, the kind of laugh she hadn't heard from him in years. He never laughed like that with her anymore. It was like he had become someone else. Then she heard what he said. "She does everything," he told his brother. "She cooks, cleans, bathes me, feeds me. It's like having a free maid and nurse in one. I don't even bother pretending to be thankful any. Why should I? She's not going anywhere." His brother laughed too, like it was some kind of joke. She stood there in silence, frozen. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands started shaking. The grocery bag nearly slipped from her fingers. Her mind couldn't process what she just heard. She thought maybe she had misunderstood, but the words repeated in her head like a broken record. Free maid, not even thankful, not going anywhere. She had spent 5 years doing everything for him, thinking it was love, thinking it mattered. She never asked for anything in return. Not money, not gifts, not even words. Just kindness, just respect. And now she heard him saying she was basically nothing more than a tool, someone to be used and not even appreciated. She didn't cry, not yet. She took a deep breath, walked in like nothing happened, and placed the groceries on the kitchen counter. Her hands still felt weak. Her body moved, but her mind was far away. He didn't notice anything. He just called out from the living room, asking if she bought his snacks. She said yes, her voice calm, steady. She handed him the chips he liked. He smiled, not knowing she had heard everything. She forced a smile back, but inside something had cracked. Something had changed. That night, when he went to bed, she sat alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet, but her thoughts were loud. She thought about all the times she defended him when others called him ungrateful. She thought about the days she skipped meals to take care of him. She thought about the birthdays she spent alone while he never even said happy birthday in return. Now she knew the truth. It wasn't just a bad day or a hard time. He didn't see her as a partner. He saw her as a servant, someone who owed him everything, someone he didn't need to thank or love anymore. She stayed up late that night, staring at the wall. Her body felt tired, but her heart felt even more worn out. Something inside her had shifted, and deep down, she knew nothing would ever feel the same again. After hearing that phone call, everything started to make sense to her. She began thinking about the way he had been acting over the past few years. She had always told herself that he was just hurting, that he was angry at life, not at her. But now she saw it differently. The small things she used to ignore suddenly felt much bigger. He used to say thank you, even for the little things. In the beginning, he would smile when she brought him food or helped him get into bed. Over time, the thank yous stopped. At first, she didn't notice. She thought maybe he was just tired, but it became a pattern. He didn't ask anymore. He told her what to do. And if she was slow or made a mistake, he would sigh or roll his eyes, like she was just there to serve him. She remembered the first time he snapped at her for being late with his lunch. She was 10 minutes late because she had been cleaning the bathroom. He didn't ask if she was okay. He just said, "Took you long enough." She felt hurt, but she brushed it off. She told herself he didn't mean it. But that wasn't the only time. He stopped talking to her about anything other than what he needed. He used to ask about her day, or her dreams, or how she was feeling. That all faded. Now, all he seemed to care about was whether the remote was near him or if his clothes were folded the right way. If she looked tired, he didn't ask why. If she seemed upset, he acted like he didn't notice. He never once asked if she was happy. Not once. She also realized something else. Since the accident, she had cried more times than she could count. She cried in the bathroom, in bed, and sometimes even in the car. She cried quietly, wiping her tears quickly so he wouldn't see. But she had never seen him cry. Not even once. Not after the accident. Not during the hard days. He complained, he shouted, he demanded, but never cried. She had always thought he was being strong. But now she wondered if he simply didn't care. She had carried both of their pain for years, and he never noticed. He had a way of making her feel like she was always wrong, even when she was doing everything right. And every time she tried to talk to him about how she felt, he would say she was overreacting or being too sensitive. She looked around the house and saw everything she had done. The clean floors, the folded laundry, the meals ready on time, the medications organized by day. She had given her whole life to caring for him, and he had acted like it was nothing, like she was nothing. The truth was hard, but it was clear now. The signs were always there. She had just been too loyal, too hopeful, too in love to see them. But now, with his words still fresh in her mind, she couldn't ignore it anymore. He didn't see her as his wife. He didn't even see her as a person. And that was the moment something inside her heart began to close. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She didn't even let him know she had heard what he said on the phone. She walked in, put the groceries away, and acted like everything was normal. She smiled. She gave him his snack. She kissed his forehead. On the outside, she looked calm like always. But inside, something had changed. She felt cold, angry, and hurt. She knew she couldn't go on like this anymore. That night, while he slept, she sat in the kitchen thinking. She couldn't sleep. Her mind was too full. She thought about everything she had done for him. Every meal, every bath, every night she stayed awake while he needed help. She thought about how he had treated her, not just on the phone, but for years. He had made her feel small, invisible, and trapped. But now she saw the truth. He didn't deserve her care. He didn't deserve her kindness. She didn't want to hurt him. She didn't want revenge in the way movies show it. She wanted justice. She wanted him to face what he had done. He had used her, spoken badly about her, and taken her for granted. She couldn't make him feel what she felt, but she could make sure he faced the truth. She began to plan. She started keeping track of everything. Each time he asked for something, each time she helped him, she wrote it down. She listed how many times a day she lifted him, changed him, fed him, cleaned the house, answered his calls. She counted everything. She also began recording his words, quietly, using her phone. Not just what he said to her, but how he said it. The rude tone, the cold commands, the silence when she needed kindness. At first, she felt strange doing it. But then she reminded herself, he had lied about her behind her back. He had laughed while calling her a servant. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was protecting herself now. Something she should have done a long time ago. She also started reading online. She learned about her rights. She looked up what support was available for caregivers. She read stories of other women who had been in the same position. Slowly, she realized she wasn't the only one. That gave her strength. She wasn't weak. She had just been too loyal for too long. During the day, she acted the same. She still helped him, still did her duties. But she didn't rush. She didn't smile as much. She stayed quiet, calm, careful. She didn't give him any hint of what was going on in her mind. He thought everything was the same. He had no idea she had started planning her way out. Her plan wasn't fast. She wanted to be sure. She wanted to do things the right way, with no mistakes. She didn't want drama. She didn't want to yell. She wanted to leave with her head high, with proof in her hands, and no regrets in her heart. Every day, her plan grew stronger. Every night, she felt a little less afraid. The woman who had once given everything was slowly building the courage to take something back, herself. She didn't leave right away. She knew she had to be careful. She had spent years doing everything for him, and if she disappeared suddenly, he would know something was wrong. So she started with small changes. Nothing big. Nothing he would notice too quickly. She stopped rushing every time he pressed the buzzer. Before, she would drop whatever she was doing and run to him. Now she waited a few minutes. Sometimes 10. Sometimes longer. When he asked why she was slow, she just said she was busy. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She stayed calm. She started taking longer showers. Before, she was in and out in a few minutes. Now she took her time. She let the hot water run over her back and closed her eyes. It was the only place in the house where she felt alone. Safe. Free. Those extra minutes helped her think, breathe, and feel like a person again. She began leaving the house without saying anything. Just short walks. A trip to the park. A coffee shop nearby. Sometimes she would turn off her phone. When she came back, he would be angry. He would ask where she had been. She would simply say, out. She didn't explain. She didn't ask for permission. She was testing the feeling of being in control again, little by little. All this time, she kept recording. Every time he raised his voice. Every rude comment. Every order he gave without a single thank you. She kept everything saved and backed up. If she ever needed to show someone the truth, she would have it ready. She wasn't going to let him twist the story. Not this time. She also kept writing down everything she did. She made a list of every task, every effort, every hour she spent on him. Cooking, cleaning, lifting, waiting, fixing, checking. The list was long. It reminded her just how much she had given. It reminded her that she wasn't weak. She was strong, stronger than even he knew. Slowly, she started talking to people again. People she had not spoken to in a long time. Some of them had once been close to him. A few had stopped visiting years ago. She reached out quietly, not saying much at first. Just checking in, asking questions, listening. To her surprise, some of them responded with warmth. A few had stories of their own, how he had been rude to them, how they had stopped coming around because he pushed them away. One nurse she found remembered him clearly and told her she had quit because of his behavior. Even his own sister admitted that she couldn't deal with his attitude anymore. Hearing these things made her feel less alone. For years, she thought it was just her, that maybe she was doing something wrong or being too sensitive. Now she saw the truth. It wasn't her. It was him. She didn't tell anyone her full plan yet. She still had work to do. But slowly, quietly, she was building her path out. She was gathering truth, finding support, and taking her life back one small step at a time. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready. She thought she was alone for a long time. She believed no one would understand what she was going through. She didn't talk to anyone about how he treated her. She thought people would think she was weak or overreacting. But one day, she decided to reach out. She started with someone small, a woman who used to be his nurse. They hadn't spoken in years. The nurse had stopped coming after only a few months. At the time, she thought maybe the nurse had found a better job. Now, she wasn't so sure. So she sent a message and waited. The nurse replied the next day. She was kind and honest. She said she had left because he was rude and disrespectful. He had treated her like she didn't matter, just like he had treated his wife. She said she remembered how the wife did everything and how tired she looked all the time. The nurse said she had felt sorry for her, but didn't know how to help back then. Hearing that made her feel less alone. Next, she called his sister. They hadn't spoken much since the accident. His sister used to visit, but slowly stopped coming. She always said she was busy or had work. This time, she picked up the phone and listened quietly. After a few minutes, she began to speak. She admitted that her brother had changed after the accident. He became angry, cold, and controlling. She said she stopped visiting because he made her feel guilty and unwanted. She said she missed the way he used to be, but couldn't deal with who he had become. She told his wife, "You're not imagining things. I saw it too." That gave her more strength. She even spoke to one of his old friends. He had been very close to her husband before the accident, but they had drifted apart. She asked him if he knew why. He hesitated at first, then said the truth. He stopped being kind. He acted like the world owed him everything. I couldn't take it anymore. He also said he admired her for staying so long and doing everything alone. The more she talked to people, the more she realized the same thing. He had pushed everyone away. He didn't just treat her badly. He had been unkind to others too. The difference was they could walk away. She had stayed, believing it was her duty. But now she saw clearly. These people didn't just listen. They offered help. One person gave her the number of a lawyer. Another helped her understand her legal rights. Someone even said she could stay at their home if she needed to leave quickly. No one judged her. No one told her to try harder. They all said the same thing. You've done enough. She no longer felt confused. She wasn't crazy. She had been living in a hard situation, and now she had proof, support, and a plan. Most of all, she had people by her side, people who saw her as a human being, not a servant. She felt stronger every day, not because the pain had gone away, but because she finally knew she didn't have to carry it alone. She knew it was time to leave. Everything she needed was ready. She had gathered proof, taken notes, and spoken to people who helped her understand her rights. She had cared for him for years, but now it was time to care for herself. She found a legal advocate through someone she trusted. The woman was patient and understanding. She listened without judgment and explained what steps could be taken. It was clear now, this wasn't just a hard life, it was emotional harm, and she didn't have to accept it. She met with a lawyer soon after. They sat together in a quiet office while she laid out everything she had prepared: recordings, written logs, medical records, and a list of all the care tasks she had been doing. The lawyer looked through the papers and told her, "You have more than enough. You've done your part. Now it's time to think about your own future." With that support, she began to prepare her exit. She chose a weekend when his parents would be visiting. She told him she needed 2 days away to rest. He barely looked up from the television and simply told her not to forget his medicine schedule when she got back. He didn't ask where she was going or if she was okay. She packed lightly, just a few clothes and important documents. She walked out of the house as if it were any other day. Calm, quiet, steady. She didn't explain much. She didn't feel the need to. She had already given too many explanations in the past. She stayed at a friend's home. For the first time in years, she slept without waking to the sound of a buzzer. There was no one calling her name, no list of tasks waiting for her. The silence was strange at first, but it felt safe. On Monday morning, while he sat at home expecting her to return, a man came to the door. He handed him an envelope and left. Inside were the divorce papers. She had filed them over the weekend. Everything was official and final. He called her, again and again. His messages were full of questions, confusion, anger, and even begging. She listened in silence but didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Her actions spoke clearly. She wasn't coming back. She spent the next days focusing on herself. She visited a doctor to check her health. The pain in her back and shoulders had been ignored for too long. She took time to rest, to sit by a window to breathe. Each day she felt lighter. Her lawyer said the case was strong. The recordings showed the emotional neglect. Her notes showed the endless hours she had spent taking care of everything. She hadn't left out of impulse. She had left after thinking, planning, and protecting herself the right way. He had always believed she would stay. He had treated her as if she had nowhere else to go. But now he knew the truth. She was gone, not just from the house, but from the life that had trapped her. And she wasn't going back. After the divorce papers were delivered, he finally understood what was happening. He didn't believe it at first. He thought she would come back, like always. But when she didn't return that evening, he started calling her nonstop. The first few calls were filled with confusion. He kept asking why she had left, where she had gone, and when she was coming back. She didn't answer. She let the phone ring. The messages kept coming. Then the tone changed. He started begging. He said he was sorry, that he didn't mean the things he said. He promised to be better. He asked her to just talk to him. She listened to the messages, but she stayed quiet. She had waited years to be heard. Now she chose silence. Later, his voice changed again. The begging turned into shouting. He started blaming her for everything. He said she was cruel, ungrateful, and heartless. He told her she had left him helpless. He said she owed him for everything she had done. He said no one else would ever take care of him the way she did. She knew those words were meant to scare her, to make her feel guilty. But they didn't. Not anymore. When she finally picked up one of his calls, he started talking right away. His voice was sharp and angry. He asked her if this was some kind of game. He told her to come back home. He said she had no right to do this. She waited for him to finish, then spoke in a calm and quiet voice. "You called me a free servant," she said, "but I'm not free anymore, and I quit." Then she ended the call. Her hands were steady. Her heart didn't race. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just sat there, breathing slowly, feeling a kind of peace she hadn't felt in years. The words had come out so simply, but they were strong. She had said what needed to be said, and that was enough. He tried to call again, but she didn't answer. She had nothing more to say. For years, he had spoken without thinking, and she had listened without replying. But now she had spoken her truth, and she didn't need to repeat it. She turned off her phone and looked out the window. The sky was clear, and the sun was soft and warm. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. Not just because she had left the house, but because she had finally found her voice. The pain he caused her would take time to fade, but this moment felt like the beginning of something new. She had stood up for herself, not with anger, but with strength. She didn't need revenge. She just needed freedom, and now she had it. She had taken care of him for 5 long years, through every hard day and long night. She had given her time, her health, and her love. And when he stopped seeing her as a person, she found the strength to walk away. Now he could no longer speak over her. He could no longer control the story. She had the final word, and it was the truth. After she left, things changed quickly. He couldn't take care of himself, and no one close to him was willing to help. His family didn't want to stay with him for long. His sister visited once but didn't return. Friends he used to have were gone. Even the neighbors stopped checking in. He had pushed everyone away with his rude words and cold behavior. People remembered how he treated them, and no one wanted to be around him anymore. He needed help, but no one offered. In the end, he had no choice but to move into an assisted care home. She didn't feel happy about it, but she knew it was not her fault. She had done everything for him for years. She had stayed longer than anyone else would have. She had given him more chances than he deserved. If he had been kind, things could have been different, but he made his choice every single day with how he treated her. Now, in that care home, he was just another person needing help. The people working there didn't love him. They did their job, nothing more. He had to wait like everyone else. He couldn't shout and expect things to be done right away. He couldn't guilt anyone into staying. He was no longer in control, and that was his real punishment. As for her, she started to rebuild her life. She signed up for classes and went back to school. It wasn't easy at first, but she kept going. She learned new things and met people who treated her with respect. She began smiling again. She took long walks without worry. She read books. She slept through the night without being woken by a buzzer. Slowly, she became herself again. Sometimes memories came back. The quiet nights, the hard days, the words that hurt. On those days, she reminded herself of the truth. She wasn't weak. She wasn't selfish. She had loved deeply, given fully, and walked away with courage. Every now and then guilt tried to return. It whispered in her ear, asking if she had done the right thing. When that happened, she played the recording, the one where he laughed and called her a free servant. Hearing that voice, that laughter, reminded her of why she left. She didn't leave because she wanted him to suffer. She left because she deserved better. And now, she finally had a chance to live. Not just survive, not just serve, but truly live. She didn't look back. There was nothing there for her anymore. The past had its place. The future was hers now. Was leaving the life she built behind the right move? Or do you think she should have held on a little longer? I'd love to hear your perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments. For more stories about strength, choice, and fresh starts, make sure to follow and stay connected.